Prime Minister Modi underlines Pakistan's complicity in Pulwama attacks during his conversation with the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The Prime Minister says both India and Saudi Arabia agree there is a need to put pressure on countries supporting terror. Both sides don't refer to Pakistan in their press statements. The Saudi Crown Prince says he's ready to share intelligence and cooperate with all countries on the issue of terrorism. The Ministry of External Affairs says that Saudi Arabia has committed to $100 billion in investment. What are the key takeaways? And most importantly, will Saudi Arabia back India's position on Pakistan-sponsored terror? That will be the big focus of our discussion. But first, let's listen in to what the Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Mohammed bin Salman, the Saudi Crown Prince, had to say earlier today.
पुलवामा में हुआ बर्बर आतंकवादी हमला इस मानवता विरोधी खतरे से दुनिया पर छाए कहर की एक और क्रूर निशानी है। इस खतरे से प्रभावशाली ढंग से निपटने के लिए हम इस बात पर सहमत हैं कि आतंकवाद को किसी भी प्रकार का समर्थन दे रहे देशों पर सभी संभव दबाव बढ़ाने की आवश्यकता है। अतिवाद के खिलाफ सहयोग और इसके लिए एक मजबूत कार्य योजना की भी जरूरत है। मुझे खुशी है कि सऊदी अरब और भारत इस बारे में साझा विचार रखते हैं।
जहां तक एक्सट्रीमिज्म और टेररिज्म की बात है, जो हमारे कॉमन कंसर्न है, हम ये बात बताना चाहते हैं भारत को बताना चाहते हैं कि हम आपके साथ हर तरह का कोऑपरेशन करेंगे, चाहे वो इंटेलिजेंस शेयर ही हो, और न सिर्फ भारत बल्कि सारे जो हमारे आसपास हैं सबके साथ मिलकर काम करेंगे, जो हमारे आने वाली पीढ़ियों के लिए रोशन भविष्य को सिक्योर करेंगे। हम आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करते हैं, आपने जो पॉजिटिव रोल प्ले किया है।
There you heard Mohammed bin Salman and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Joining us now to take this forward are Mohammad Ayub, non-resident senior fellow at the Center for Global Policy and Professor Emeritus at Michigan State University. We're also joined by former ambassadors K.C. Singh, Anil Trigunayat, and also author, journalist and political scientist Jonna Blank. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Ambassador Trigunayat, I'd like to begin with you and with those pictures of Prime Minister Narendra Modi receiving Mohammed bin Salman at the airport. He broke protocol. This is a courtesy reserved for very special heads of state. What do you think is the larger message?
Is that Saudi Arabia is an important and strategic partner for India, and which is there for our energy security, it is in the neighborhood and for the welfare of the Indian nationals who are almost 2.7 million there. And it also says that we are looking for greater investment from Saudi Arabia, which has already been declared as over $100 billion, 5 times that what he had promised in Pakistan. So we feel that in terms of Saudi Arabia is the biggest economy. Now the hugging and receiving the Prime Minister has broken protocol 9 times before in several cases, and those are all special countries, and it is to convey a special message that you matter for us and that we stand by together.
Right. Ambassador K.C. Singh, to get you in, India was attaching a lot of importance to this visit. One, to increase investments and bilateral ties with Saudi Arabia, and also because of the Pulwama attack. The Prime Minister underlined Pakistan's complicity in the Pulwama terror attacks. But do you think they are getting support from the Saudi Crown Prince?
It's difficult to say. Even Prime Minister did not use the word Pakistan. He just used Pulwama. And of course the Crown Prince used neither. He just kept it in a very anodyne way to, what is called motherhood and apple pie. We are all against terrorism. Everybody has his favorite terrorism which he wants to oppose. For them, terrorism means Iran. So, you don't know which terrorism they're talking about. Does he really mean the terrorism that is affecting us? Because much of that money and support comes from within Saudi Arabia to many of these groups. And they are all descended from the old jihad which was carried against Soviet Union. And this is all a residual effect of what happened in the alliance between Pakistan, CIA and Saudi Arabia. In the 10 years they were fighting Soviet Union and Afghanistan. And the effect is still not over. So Pakistan, with its more self-confident, cocky, almost cocky way in which Imran Khan spoke yesterday, and then in the joint statement there, Saudi Arabia very clearly tilted in favor of Pakistan. They seem to accept the Pakistani argument that India has not given any proof, because they said we should not politicize the listing of people. Whereas here he made no attempt to rebalance it. He could have at least, commiserated with India, said it's very bad, loss of life in Pulwama, condemned it. He just kept away, no P word, neither Pulwama nor Pakistan. And the focus was on basically economic and technical cooperation with India, which was expected. But I don't think Prime Minister needed to go all the way to the airport to hug him for that.
On terror.
Yeah. But that's more technical call.
Right.
That's
you feel
more
that
like
the Prime Minister
intelligence
needn't have
sharing,
gone
which they're
all the way to receive him. Exactly. I'd like to get in Mohammad Ayub at this point. Mohammad Ayub, in your piece, you have said that India will not be able to wean Riyadh away from Pakistan because of the strategic importance of Pakistan for Saudi Arabia. Why do you feel that? Please tell our audience.
Yeah, I'll tell that. But before I say that, let me preface it by saying that Mohammed bin Salman is on a trip to rehabilitate his image after the brutal murder of Jamal Khashoggi, and most people think he was implicated in it. So he's willing to say what his hosts want to hear. And general statements condemning terrorism is a part of that strategy. But going back to your question, Pakistan is strategically very important to Saudi Arabia and has been for some time. Pakistan and Saudi Arabia share certain goals regarding Afghanistan, particularly now that the United States seems to be on the cusp of withdrawal, military withdrawal from Afghanistan, and the Taliban may stage or are likely to stage a comeback as a result. And Pakistan is the patron of the Taliban. So the Saudis want, obviously, to cultivate Pakistan in relation to Afghanistan, because they also fear that once the Americans withdraw, the Iranian influence may increase, particularly through its allies amongst the Hazaras and the Tajiks. So that's one thing. The other thing, of course, is the big elephant in the room as far as Saudis are concerned is Iran itself. They are in a very major way in competition with, engaged in a cold war with Iran throughout West Asia, from Syria to Yemen.
Right.
And to them, Pakistan is, they see Pakistan also as a strategic partner in the effort to contain Iran. For ideological reasons, because the Pakistani ideology, as it becomes increasingly more Sunni fundamentalist, turns to be anti-Shia. And also because the Iranians are very skeptical about Pakistan, and they have said so openly most recently after the attack on the Revolutionary Guards, when 27 Revolutionary Guards were killed.
All right.
And therefore, both of these reasons
we'll
make
come
it very
back to that point.
For the Saudis.
Right. We'll come back to that point, Mohammad Ayub, about whether there is international support against Pakistan-sponsored terror. But just to get in Jonna Blanks at this point, Jonna, what do you feel are the priorities for Saudi Arabia vis-a-vis its foreign policy currently? Mohammad Ayub very correctly put it that right now the Saudi Crown Prince wants to refurbish his visit after the Jamal Khashoggi affair. What do you think and where do you feel India fits in the entire game of things?
Yes, well, first, I very much agree with Dr. Ayub and with the ambassador. I think they both have laid it out quite well. I think that it's important for India to understand that Saudi Arabia is not really looking out for the interests of India here. Saudi Arabia has a convergence of interests with Pakistan, and particularly with a number of very violent terrorist groups within Pakistan, especially Lashkar-e-Taiba, which follows the al-Hadith ideology that is often propagated by Saudi funders. So the idea that Mohammed bin Salman would ever be truly interested in reining in some of these groups against the interests of ISI and of his own nation, I think is a little bit of a pipe dream for India.
it's a bit of a pipe dream. And I'd like to get Ambassador Trigunath.
That's exactly the word that I used in my article.
I think this panel believes. Yeah, I'm going to come back to that, Mohammad Ayub. But just to get in Ambassador Trigunath, I think this panel believes that it will be difficult for Saudi Arabia, for India to wean Saudi Arabia from Pakistan completely. Do you think we'll be able to leverage this relationship? There's been a lot of pressure in India to come up with a credible response against Pakistan. Do you think this relationship with Saudi Arabia has its limitations currently?
You see, there is no doubt about it. The Saudi Arabia is one of the biggest benefactors of Pakistan. This has been there forever for religious reasons. And if you were to read the joint statement that was issued in Pakistan after the visit, it started with that under the guidance of the custodian of the two holy mosques. And at the same time, whatever assistance Saudi Arabia has given has been very well recognized there. And these two visits, both to India and to Pakistan, have been marked by tremendous optics on both sides, which tends to give away that they are more closer to Pakistan. I must recall the visit of Prime Minister Manmohan Singh in 2010, which I was handling myself, to Riyadh, when we issued the Riyadh Declaration. And that was the first time that the Saudi Arabia really came on board to talk about terrorism and to fight global terrorism everywhere, wherever it existed. Thereafter, in 2016, again, there were several paras in the joint statement that was issued with Prime Minister Modi. And even this time, the main focus, while the relationship was there, but it was held in the optics and that Pakistan is involved in the attacks through Jaish-e-Mohammed. And the Pakistanis understand very well that India is going to take some precipitate action against them. And that is why I think that the Saudi Crown Prince has been trying to somehow leverage the relationship to an extent that this situation does not boil over. Yes.
Okay, and that's what the Saudi foreign minister also said while visiting Pakistan, and he's also said this to journalists in India, that we want to de-escalate the situation. But as Ambassador K.C. Singh also said, he said, how can we condemn Pakistan till the time there is evidence on the table? I'd like to go back to K.C. Singh. India's options with Saudi Arabia will be limited. If that is the case, what real options do we have in the region? Iran has summoned the Pakistani envoy over the death of 27 IRG core members. Afghanistan summoned the Pakistani envoy over a statement that there will be an impact on the peace process if there is retaliation over the Pulwama attacks from the Indian side. Who are our friends in the region, so to say, right now, and how much support can we expect from all the countries in the region?
Look, if all the countries, US is withdrawing from the area, then essentially all countries are going back to what was there before 9/11. Which is Saudi Arabia, Emirates. They were the two countries which had received the Taliban ambassador then. The only additionality is Qatar, where the Taliban office is there. But essentially, India will have to gravitate towards Iran. And that starts then affecting your relationship with the US. But that becomes your natural ally, because don't forget, immediately before Pulwama, the attack you're talking about deliberately took place in the same form. It was a car bomb against the IRGC. And that was Pakistan ingratiating itself to Saudi Arabia before the Crown Prince arrived. Because Pakistan is the only nuclear weapon possessing Islamic country. And that is the guarantee that Saudis have. They've been buying more missiles. What they need is a nuclear warhead. That if Iran, now completely isolated, starts enriching uranium again and starts going towards weaponization, then their only ally to be able to get a device is Pakistan. So it goes back to almost the pre-9/11 orientation of countries, and India will have no other option but to go back with Iran to build up the anti-Taliban forces in Afghanistan.
All right, so we're looking at a difficult diplomatic campaign ahead, but John Blanks, to get you in at this point, we saw some strong statements from the US President, also from the State Department. The US President Donald Trump said that it looks like a horrible situation. We'll get back on it. The State Department spokesperson then said, we are talking to both Pakistan and India. We want Pakistan to cooperate on the investigations and bring the perpetrators to book. So do you think this is a statement which shows the intention of the US government to work very closely with India on the Pulwama attacks and also to put pressure on Pakistan?
Well, sadly, I think that the U.S. has been somewhat absent here. The U.S., I feel, has an important role to play in putting a lot more pressure on Pakistan than has yet been put. The U.S. has played crisis diplomacy in the past. I've been involved in that when I was in U.S. government. And there really is a need for the U.S. to step up to the plate. I've seen no evidence yet that it has done so. I hope that there is a lot more going on behind the scenes, but my feeling is that the U.S. equities in Afghanistan are taking precedence over the budding and I think very important U.S. relationship with India.
Right. And Mohammad Ayub, to get you in, today there is a bit of conflict because when the Saudi Crown Prince was speaking, we got a sense that he's saying that there is a potential of up to $100 billion in investment. The Ministry of External Affairs in a press conference a short while back said that this is not potential that he was talking about, it is a commitment. How should we see this vis-a-vis the investments that have happened in Pakistan?
Well, I wanted to make a couple of other points, but let me address this very briefly. I think the Saudis are very good at making commitments or so-called commitments that run into scores or of billions of dollars, millions of dollars, and so on and so forth. But there's very little, usually very little follow-up on that. And I think the Pakistanis are also suffering because of that. But I wanted to make a couple of other points which I think are important in strategic terms.
Sure.
First, I agree very much with Ambassador Singh about the importance of Iran in terms of the Indian foreign policy framework. I have argued for the last 3 decades that Iran is our logical ally in the region, both because of what's been happening in Pakistan and Afghanistan, but above all, because Iran and India are very close in terms of or were until recently very close in terms of their approach to foreign policy and international relations. The Iranians, like us, are committed to maintaining at all costs their strategic autonomy. Non-alignment was the code word for strategic autonomy. And I remember in the early 1980s, Rafsanjani, who was then the Speaker of Parliament, later became President of Iran, telling me that India and Iran both are committed to non-alignment. The difference is, as he said, for India, it's a policy. For us, it is a creed. And that to him was the difference. But there is that strategic convergence, ideologically as well as strategically, that I think we should have taken more note of. On the issue of Saudi Arabia condemning terrorism, it was mentioned that in the 2010 meeting, visit of Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, they came up with that formula. The Saudis have been condemning terrorism beginning sort of the first decade of the 20th century. But if you look into what's been happening in Saudi Arabia and what's been exported out of Saudi Arabia, as Ambassador Singh mentioned in a way, tangentially, Saudi Arabia has been the font of the ideology that had produced extremism and terrorism in the Muslim world. And the malign influence of Wahhabism has now contaminated much of the Muslim world and led to this extremism. So, in a way, I would like to conclude on this issue by saying, as we say in Urdu, "900 chuhe kha ke billi haj ko chali," which roughly translated it is that after gobbling up 900 rats, the cat has now gone to Hajj, gone to pilgrimage on Mecca. So I think there's a lot of hypocrisy involved. It's only when Wahhabism from below became the mortal enemy of Wahhabism from above. That's the Saudi regime version of Wahhabism, that the Saudis took notice of terrorism.
Right. That's a very important point. And Ambassador Trigunai, to come to you, Mohammad Ayub very well put that probably Saudi Arabia is the font of ideology on extremism. Do you believe that after the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, because of the kind of international pressure that Saudi Arabia and Mohammed bin Salman are facing, India's efforts to invest in the relationship with the Middle East and Gulf countries, internationally expose Pakistan, there can be some change of heart at platforms like the FATF, at the UN? Or will we have to come up with another diplomatic strategy
I agree with
to have a long-term effect?
Well, I fully agree with what Professor Ayub had said about the trend of Saudi Arabia being a fountain of Wahhabi philosophy. That is a well-known fact, and everyone knows that. And that has been basically propagated abroad. And so the terrorists like Bin Laden and all, who were Saudi citizens, and the ones who perpetrated 9/11, we all know they were all Saudis. So there is no denying the fact that Saudi Arabia has been a hotbed of radical philosophies in the Islamic world, and which may have further graduated into the philosophies of ISIS and Al-Qaeda. At the same time, I would like to say that the current regime, despite all its problems, despite all its issues, has been trying to bring about some reforms in the country, even if they are very cosmetic. But those reforms will have far-reaching consequences.
Okay.
The fact is that the clergy there, the conservatives in that country are going to create a little bit of a problem. But what we have to look at it from India's perspective is not necessarily, you see, to isolate a country is not easy. And the Gulf countries, not only Saudi Arabia, but it's UAE, it's Qatar, it's Kuwait, all of them have been helping Pakistan in one way or the other for the religious reasons mainly, and for the strategic reasons which have been spelled out, be it Taliban or others. And we all know the Taliban was essentially brought up by Pakistan with the help of US and Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
And they have been funding that forever. What we are looking at it, I think, is we must look at the possibility of using whatever funds they have, yes, and to look after our citizens there. Besides, we have these 200 million Indian Muslims for whom Hajj and Umrah are very important. And this year, they keep on increasing the quota for us, and that is the thing. On the other hand, we have no choice but to have excellent relations with all the Gulf countries which we have, including with Iran.
That's right. You know, Ambassador Trigunayat, we're running out of time. I'd like to get in quick comments, but you made an important point that we will have to focus on the easy deliverables and the mutually agreeable areas. Final comments, 20 seconds each to all our panelists. Jonah Blank, what do you feel should be the way forward for India diplomatically? Which will be the best option?
I think India should try to get Mohammed bin Sultan to put as much pressure on Pakistan as he can, while being very aware that the relationship with Iran is probably going to be more important for India, and not expecting MBS to do anything more than he realistically is going to be willing to do.
All right. Ambassador Casey Singh, what do you feel will be the best diplomatic policy moving forward?
I think we're doing the right thing. We've spoken to everyone. If nothing else, we've neutralized Saudi Arabia. So even if we take some action, they will not be proactive in running to Pakistan's help or having the Islamic Organization of Islamic Conference take it up, etc. But we keep doing what they're doing. Security Council, the French, the British, with whatever help the Americans are giving. But ultimately, you'll have to pull the chestnuts out of the fire yourselves. And that is what we'll eventually have to do. And hope in the meanwhile that if privately Mohammed bin Salman has given some commitment, he will deliver on it in the next week or 10 days.
Okay. Let's hope there is some sort of deliverable on the issue of terror coming from Pakistan. But to get in Mohammad Ayub, what do you think will be the best prescription for India when it comes to Pak-sponsored terror? We have been a victim for many years now. What is the long-term strategy that India should have?
I think the best long-term strategy is deterrence, and this deterrence can only be made concrete by a major military operation that does harm to the Pakistani military infrastructure. Now, this could snowball, so we have to be careful about it. But I don't see how diplomatic pressure. I mean, everybody, when you talk about terrorism and bring it to the notice of the international community, everybody says we sympathize with you, terrorism is bad, and so on and so forth. But all that all that doesn't amount to much. I think as victims of terrorism, if we consider ourselves to be victims of terrorism, we have to take some concrete action that would have a lasting impact on the Pakistani psyche.
All right, we'll have to take concrete action. And Ambassador Trigunayat, we're in election season. Do you think we'll need silent diplomacy in the days to come? Just 10 seconds. I've completely run out of time.
No, I think as Ambassador K.C. Singh also said, we are doing the right things and we continue to do so, irrespective of the elections or not.
Right. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. This is going to be a tough diplomatic campaign for India in the days to come.